Hi, Verena, and welcome back. And in our second part of the podcast, or our new series, which is actually not that new anymore, where we talk about problems in academia. So, to begin with, we have quite a lot of problems, unfortunately, in academia. And the most famous are the publishing, that is related to also funding, and the postdoc crisis, which you already referred to. The very few tenure track that are actually offered to early career scientists, reproducibility problems, and also other things that are in our um, field, unfortunately, and that lead to not effective science, actually. If you can pick one of the many topics, or maybe introduce something else, what would be it, and how would you think we have to address it as a community in order to try and solve it, for example?
I think, I'm not sure if you mentioned it right now, but I think one of the biggest things to talk about is actually the culture in science, research culture, which I think if we solve this, we solve many other problems along with it. I think we can solve the reproducibility crisis. I think we can hopefully solve partially at least the postdoc crisis with this. And also other things such as mental health crisis and burnout, and work on resilience of researchers so that we can retain more people in the system. Of course, there, like you say, there's only limited amount of positions, but that's in addition a thing that we have to tackle. And I think in addition maybe to changing or to working on research culture, something that is really important is to have sort of this akademische Mittelbau, where we have positions for highly qualified scientists after PhD or after postdoc that do not want to pursue a PI career, but that are highly qualified and that could contribute tremendously with all their knowledge and experience to the academic system and to research being growing. And we have to kind of sort of solve this one, I think,
So
as the first one.
Staff scientists to have more position, right?
Yeah, to have more positions for staff scientists or research associates, or however you want to call that. So in that regard, there are many more of these kind of positions available in the US. How to translate this into the German academic system or European one, it's a big question, I guess. And it also depends on how much funding is available to enable these positions.
Exactly. Easy answer, more money. But who is going to give the money? When you say research culture, what do you mean with that?
Well, it's the way we work. It's the way we communicate, the way we publish, the way we lead teams, the way we mentor, the way we collaborate. It's all the things that happen that are invisible, so to say, but that make a huge difference of how much we enjoy what we are doing, on top of how exciting science is, which is undebatable, but how much we love going to work every day does also matter, depending on how the culture is. So, and to this publish and perish, that also work or feeds into that, actually. We just need to gradually change everything, I think, and the culture is a big part of it.
Can you give us some maybe personal example or some example that you heard of in one of these like chains of research culture? Let's say how we work or how we collaborate, how we communicate, where you saw a problem, and then maybe how would you solve this, for example?
Yeah, I think if we talk about mental health, which has been named many times, and there are many surveys by Nature with regards to PhD students, for example, but also now newer surveys with regards to postdocs. If we talk about mental health, then it's really important to to see people and researchers as who they are on top of the scientists that they are, to create some sort of working together where people actually can form psychological safety or trust within groups. So one thing that I saw in a group, for example, that I really liked is that if they start or they actually have separate meetings once per week where they meet, and the PI is there, and it's called Zoom in, Zoom out. So the PI is there for 30 minutes or an hour, and whoever wants to come can come. And then it's just sharing whatever they want to share. It doesn't have to be related. It's not related to science. It doesn't have to be related to their personal life. It can be, but it's really just a space where people can kind of interact. I also think if we talk about science culture, there are many institutes that have retreats. In reality, these retreats are just masked conferences. Maybe the food is nicer. Maybe you go somewhere a little bit further away from your institute. But this is not really what we understand as retreat and what regenerates people. But that's what retreat actually would mean and what it's supposed to be, to interact with your group differently, to connect in different ways, to maybe build on your team spirit a little bit, and to just create some sort of environment that is where everybody feels more welcome to come. And where people trust each other more as well. Because I experienced this with a lot of competition. I experienced a lot of competition in groups that I worked in, and there was absolutely no safety psychologically, and there was a lot of intrigues and uncomfortable situations where no one feels really good. And I think if people talk on different levels, not necessarily only on the colleague who is more experienced than me, so I have to keep up with her or him, it can gradually change. And it's these small things that we don't really feel like we have time for it, but I think it can make a big difference. And something similar would be peer groups, where you can just meet and exchange whatever's happening in your group, or like among other postdocs or young PIs or people in the same field. It doesn't really matter, but just more spaces to interact spontaneously, not only on a scientific level.
And also, I mean, first of all, I very much like what you're saying, and I also think that this is needed. And one of the reasons why this is happening, we actually touched upon in our full episode where you introduced SciLead, that a lot of PIs, or maybe all of PIs, they have never been trained how to be good managers. And if you don't train yourself, then you don't have this kind of skills, this training. And then, of course, things in the lab are not going to be smooth. And when you add to that PhDs per se, most of PhDs have no idea what working environment is actually, because you come from bachelor studies and then the master studies, and then you start a PhD, and you never basically worked some job with some else other than student. And this professional attitude is also lacking there. So you have, on one hand, the boss is lacking this leadership. On the other hand, the students or the workers, they're lacking the professional attitude. And then what is happening sometimes is just a kindergarten with some person like a teacher or something above, which is like complete mess. And I've seen this in many labs as well, and I totally support it. And I'm very happy that you guys started this organization that we actually talked about, the SciLead, which is aimed exactly at this, right? To promote among scientists that actually leadership and also this kind of soft skills are very, very valuable. And we need to acquire them and to perfect them in order to become, on one hand, better people, better workers, better team members, then on the other hand, better leaders. And then eventually we can probably produce better outcome, right?
Yeah, Definitely.
And the retreat, I totally agree that these are masked conferences. I never knew what is retreat. Like, I was like, okay, then this is another conference type or something. And then at some point I read a book about, I don't remember what was it about, but it was one of these things was written about some psychologist, I think Carl Gustav Jung, or somebody else, I don't remember, but in this particular book, they describe this guy he went on a retreat basically to charge himself, to elaborate on his perspective, to gather some new ideas, and then inquired somewhere in peace, with 2-3 other people or alone. And what we do in our retreats is basically we go somewhere, and then from 8 in the morning until 8 in the evening, there are like talks that every scientist give, and there's so little time for interaction. And it's just I don't understand it. I don't know, probably your opinion is similar, but
yeah, I think there are better ways. Also, in general, in conferences, there's very serious, and there could be more interactive parts as well that could make it a little bit more fun and still be professional and still exchange science on a very, very high level. Mm-hmm. But I think different formats would be a good idea for different areas of science.
Definitely. Is there anything on top of your mind that you want to share with us regarding challenges in academia?
I think I also want to, there are many open science fellowships and open science initiatives and so on, but I think I just also want to say how important open science is, and what it means is just to openly share data, to standardize protocols, to also report methods accordingly. And I think if we put more emphasis on open science, we can also start tackling this reproducibility crisis. Because in the end, the whole system is so much charged with pressure of publishing and perishing, or publishing or perishing, that there is not enough time sometimes to take space or take the time to write methods really rigorously or meticulously and report them properly, to share code properly, or to just even share protocols sometimes within an institute or within a group sometimes can be difficult because of the pressure in the system. And I think regarding that as well, I want to also to mention actually that's one of my biggest points that I'm always emphasizing on, is to the real key, I think, lies in reforming research assessment. So we need to go into a different direction where we add different metrics of how we assess scientists and science. If we go from only citations and high impact factor papers and grant money that we acquire, more into different metrics of career advancement, mentoring, leadership skills, how many PhDs did you actually help to receive their degree, and how many are still in science, and how well is your contact with them, and so on. If we just extend the spectrum of, right now we look into 3 different things mainly if we assess people or scientists. If we look into more of that, I think that would be the way to go. And there are many initiatives already, like this COARA, this Coalition of Research Assessment, which is a global movement, and many universities have already signed this agreement, and there are working groups working towards these different metrics and other additional things. But I think if we focus on diversifying that, we can also gradually change culture. Because if leadership and mentorship matters more, people have to change. Because if you get funding, more likely when you are a better leader, then you put more emphasis on becoming one, for example.
That is very true, and I totally agree with that. And at some point I was thinking about some kind of a platform where like PhD students or postdocs can write comments about their experience in this particular lab with this particular person, and then this should be visible to everybody, because when you look for a job in some lab, you don't know what kind of character the PI has. Maybe, you read just the papers and then see some talks here and there, but you don't know if this person is actually a good mentor, a good leader. Is he or she there in the lab when you need them? So it is really, really important. And yeah, I totally agree with that. Something funny. So I've done this now. I think this is the 27th episode with you. I don't remember, 26th or 27th. And always, every time I start by saying these 3, 4, 5 topics, and I think every single scientist talked about something different, which is very cool. I like it very nice. And I like it very much. And I think it's nice to hear your personal perspective, and what you are, what is your, let's say, burning problem, so to say. And I'm very grateful that you shared also these insights with us. Verena, thank you very much once again for coming and for the lovely discussion. And now we have to go because you have to catch train back to Berlin. We don't miss it. We don't want to miss Deutsche Bahn. It's tricky stuff. Thank you, Verena.
Thank you, Sweelen.